on the 17th of September 2025, members of the Garrison Artillery Volunteers journeyed from the UK to meet up with their Dutch colleagues in order to take part in the annual commemoration events for Operation Market Garden. This year was slightly different though, as it had been arranged we'd support 7 Royal Horse Artillery, with taking part in a particularly special memorial celebration and service dedicated to the gunners of the 1st Airborne Division, unveiling a plaque at Oosterbeek Church, the Oosterbeek.
We've been flying straight into Holland now for something like 20 minutes. So far without any opposition, at least none that I have been able to see. Our fighters are down just almost nosing along the hedgerows, searching the little villages, and they're up above us and on both sides. This is the real meaning of air power, and it seems that the Dutch realize it as well, because in a little village that we're just passing over, I can see at least 24 people standing along the narrow winding street. Some of them are children, and I can see that most of them seem to be wearing a white shirt or a white blouse of some kind. There go the parapacks on a formation ahead of us, yellow, brown, red, drifting down gently, dropping their containers. I can't see, we're a little too far away, I can't see the bodies of the men. Yes, I can. Just like little brown dolls hanging under a green lampshade, they look. Look back at the door, and Lieutenant Haupt gives me the clenched hand salute like a boxer about to jump.
We're just ready to jump now.
Our particular group is not yet dropped. The chutes ahead of us are still going on. There's a burst of flak right there. Those are coming up at us now. You can see it red from the side. It's coming from the port side just across our nose, but a little bit low, at least so it seems so far. I think it's coming from a railway embankment just down to the left. It was certainly considerably under us and just ahead of us then. It's the first flak we've seen. There was one burst of light flak, there's another. More tracers going across just in front of our nose. I think it's coming from that little village just beside the canal. More tracer coming up now. Just cutting across in front of our nose. A lovely orange color it is. More ships ahead of us are now dropping. Haupt will be just teed up on the door now, waiting to jump. Walking out of this aircraft with no flak suits, no armor plating on the ship. We're down just about to the drop altitude now. A little more tracer coming up. The 9 ships ahead of us have just dropped. You can see the men swinging down. In just about 30 seconds now, our ship will drop, and these 19 men will walk out onto Dutch soil. You can probably hear the snap as they check the lashing on the static line. We're throttled back now. There it goes. Do you hear them shout? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There they go. Every man out. I can see their chutes going down now. Every man clear. They're dropping just beside a little windmill near a church, hanging there very gracefully. Seem to be completely relaxed, as I said a moment ago, like nothing so much as khaki dolls hanging beneath a green lampshade. You can see one man go down just north of the little road. The whole sky is filled with parachutes. They're all going down so slowly, it seems as though they should get to the ground much faster. We're now swinging about, making a right-hand turn.
A group of us were really fortunate to be present and witness the flypast of a DC-3 Dakota right above the memorial to Flight Lieutenant David Lord at Reyes Camp near Wolfhazer, right on Landing Zone S, where unfortunately he crashed on the 19th of September. Lord was 30 years old and serving with number 271 Squadron for the Royal Air Force, when he was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross for his actions on that day. Lord had already been involved in Operation Market Garden, when he participated in a glider release. He was then tasked to fly one of the 17 aircraft from 271 Squadron on a resupply operation. The target was Drop Zone V, just on the outskirts of Arnhem. Unfortunately, the Germans had established a position on the drop zone and thus set up a trap consisting of many 20mm guns and at least one 88mm battery. In the afternoon, several short Sterling aircraft were shot down, and despite an attempt to communicate information about the presence of these forces, the message simply did not arrive in time. The 17 Dakotas arrived at the drop zone and were met by fierce anti-aircraft fire. Allied troops were in direct contact with the enemy around the drop zone, and short of parachutes, wickerwork free-fall baskets were being used to drop non-breakable, non-explosive supplies. And therefore, the aircrews had been briefed to fly in at 500 feet at 120 miles per hour in a straight line for 2 minutes. All of this in broad daylight and without a fighter escort. David Lord was hit by flak twice, 4 miles from the drop zone, and his Dakota began to catch fire and set ablaze. Lord continued onwards towards the drop zone, despite the risk of wing failure. After the initial drop, the air dispatchers came forward to speak to him and explained that through further flak hitting the aircraft, the rail system on the floor of the aircraft had buckled, and they'd been unable to dispatch the last 2 crates full of ammunition for the troops below. Lord, hearing this and knowing the desperate situation that faced the troops below him, circled around and made another pass over the drop zone whilst under enemy fire. All of this took place over a stunning 8 minutes under direct attack from the enemy. With his wing ablaze, it was reported that many people on the ground stopped fighting and looked on in awe at this spectacle of bravery. Major General Roy Urquhart, the divisional commander, remembered looking on, spellbound and speechless, as the burning aircraft flew a blizzard of fire, not just once, but twice, in order to complete its mission. He later wrote, "I dare say there is not a survivor of Arnhem who will ever forget, or want to forget, the courage that we were privileged to witness in those terrible 8 minutes." David Lord shouted to his crew to jump, but the wing failed before they had time to escape, and the aircraft crashed in flames on landing zone S. Of the 6 crew and 2 Army air dispatchers, only the navigator, Flying Officer Henry King, survived, as he was thrown out of the aircraft just as the wing broke off. Witnesses on the ground reported that his parachute only just opened in time. He landed and eventually became prisoner of war. He spent the remainder of the war at Stalag Luft 1, and it was only on his release in mid-1945 that the truth of Lord's actions became known. What an incredible, selfless, brave, courageous act, and we were truly privileged to watch the fly past in memory of it.
I've not been very good at keeping in touch, I'm afraid. But we're having a pretty busy day, and I've been all over the place. Been driving the Jeep. Sorry, a chap just stopped to speak to me. I've been driving the Jeep all over the place, and we've been to a couple of museums. We've been to, I don't know if you saw the amazing aeroplane that flew over, but we were up straight away this morning to watch that flyby, which was pretty incredible. And now we're at a huge building in the middle of Oosterbeek, which is an enormous museum. And hopefully I'll have some food soon. Oh, can you see? The aeroplanes are going back and forth, and they've been dropping paratroopers all day today. And then we're going to have a huge convoy of Second World War vehicles tomorrow. And then Saturday, that's tomorrow, there'll be an enormous drop as well of paratroopers at Ginkle Heath. there's another one. All the soldiers will be jumping out of those. Speak to you soon.
My previous video discusses the overall intentions of the operation and how the Recce Squadron were intended to carry out a coup de main racing straight ahead to Arnhem Bridge. As it actually happened, it was the 2nd Battalion Parachute Regiment who landed on Drop Zone X and then had to march their 8 miles into Arnhem following Route Lion, which was the most southerly of the routes into Arnhem. Leopard and Tiger had been followed by other units but were blocked by German forces, and it was only the 2nd Battalion that actually arrived at Arnhem Bridge. Every year the commemoration involves a huge effort put on by the Airborne Battle Wheels, a convoy of many hundreds of Second World War vehicles, and so we dutifully joined with Jeeps and Bedfords and made our way through the crowds to Arnhem and back to Oosterbeek.
Hey you guys, today's update, we are queuing up now ready for the race to the bridge, and all these cars behind lined up and all the way down. I'm going to change camera a sec. We've got the aircraft still going over and they're dropping just over there. They're parachuting out the sky, well, out of the aeroplanes, and there are hundreds of vehicles ready to drive from here, from where they landed, from where all the vehicles were pulled out of gliders that had landed, and all the way to Arnhem Bridge.
Despite the initial surprise and the success of the air landings, and Para securing the end of Arnhem Bridge, the German forces were simply too great and too swift at relocating and redistributing, and they swiftly overwhelmed the 10,000 airborne troops that had arrived. Slowly, the battle for Arnhem became the battle for Oosterbeek Perimeter, troops falling back into the area around Oosterbeek, first forming an outer perimeter, but gradually as the Germans hammered their equipment, hammered their troops with artillery, mortars, tank attacks and infantry, that perimeter began to shrink until it was slowly held by all manner of airborne forces present: the Staffords, the King's Own Scottish Borderers, the Border Regiment, the Royal Engineers holding some of the perimeter, and the medics working tirelessly in medical dressing stations such as that at the restaurant Chou Nord and the Tafelberg. That perimeter grew under greater and greater pressure until finally on the night of the 25th, plans to evacuate were drawn up, and with thanks to the Canadian Royal Engineers coming across the river from the south, a number of the troops managed to escape quietly, carefully, and terribly, terribly slowly through the night. This left absolute destruction in Oosterbeek, and a number of hundred of troops who were left behind, who spent time hiding, shuffling from place and house to place and house, until if they were lucky, they were found and supported by the Dutch resistance, who either helped them to escape or protected and sheltered them until they were eventually taken prisoner of war themselves. As part of that collapsing perimeter, the guns of the 1st Air Landing Light Regiment and 1st Air Landing anti-tank batteries gathered around Oosterbeek Church, the Oude-Kerke. From here, as Lonsdale took over what became the Lonsdale Force, those artillery pieces continued to fire out in support of the perimeter, carrying out not just effective artillery shoots, but also morale shoots, supporting those troops who bravely held the thin perimeter line against crushing German opposition. This was the reason that the Garrison Artillery Volunteers had come to Arnhem, and we were proud and honoured to be able to support 7 Royal Horse Artillery in laying a memorial on behalf of the Royal Regiment of Artillery to the gunners of the 1st Airborne Division who stood and who fell in that heroic effort.
We are out in a little village called Oosterbeek, and we are right down on the fields where they had guns here, big guns in the Second World War. Oosterbeek Church is just there, and they're having a service right now and unveiling the memorial, and then we're going to fire that gun just there, and we'll mark the beginning and the end of 2 minutes silence. And then Tom and I are going to go for a little drive in one of those, and then probably have dinner.
Boy. Fight!
Just pull it down the barrel. I don't think they've got a pump.
We did the firing, and yeah, that went off without a hitch. I was down on the field with the guns. Tom had to lay the wreath because he's an officer, so he was nobbled with doing that up in the big the service and the parade. They've got popped into Nijmegen. There's a Czech girl with us, and she wanted to go and visit some of the Czech graves out in Nijmegen. So Tom and I have popped into Arnhem. Well, we're at Oosterbeek at the moment. We're just going to go. Tom wanted to see a place, St. Elizabeth Hospital, and I want to go and find the hotel where I was. We came and we stayed during the 50th celebration when I was about 13, and get Tom to take a photo of me in the doorway. That'll make my mum happy. It'll tickle her pink, so that's worth doing.
Sadly, roadworks meant that was still worth doing, but just wasn't possible. Hopefully AI will make up for that. 13-year-old Timmy and 44-year-old Tim. And then we were on to the St. Elizabeth Hospital, now a modern row of flats and apartments, but the scene of, at the time, a Dutch hospital that was taken over by the British forces as a perfect, substantial medical base in which to treat both sides. And interestingly, the hospital passed between both sides a number of times through the battle, with eventually the German forces taking control of it and a number of the prisoners who weren't too badly injured actually hopping over the rear wall and escaping to avoid capture. And then on to the Hartenstein Airborne Museum, which is absolutely worth a visit. One of the finest museums that we've been to. And here, Major Lonsdale himself taking a cigarette after the battle, who famously left this message scrawled onto a wooden tabletop in the church as he briefed his troops about making their final stand and making every last round count. And then working through the gardens of the Hartenstein, looking at the damage that was sustained by the 17-pounders in particular, and just trying to imagine what the area was like. And, well, I honestly don't think we can imagine what it was like to have served there, to have been dug in there, and to have seen so many people alongside you pay those ultimate sacrifices. Following through to Oosterbeek Cemetery, and then making our way around the Oosterbeek Perimeter, stopping at the Airborne Gunners Memorial at Heelsum, and then making our way through to Hackett's Hollow, where the remnants of 156 Battalion and 10th Battalion Parachute Regiment found themselves holed up with Major Hackett, Brigadier Hackett. A number of commanding officers and senior officers had been killed. In fact, that was one of the defining issues of the entire operation, were the number of commanders who were killed, leaving pockets of soldiers without guidance, without instruction, without order, without direction. And at this particular hollow, 150 blokes ended up pinned in against flamethrower attack, tank attack, German infantry probing until finally Brigadier Hackett ordered that they fix bayonets, and he led a bayonet charge through the German line and into the safety of the Oosterbeek Perimeter. And that I find truly remarkable, because there was nothing safe about the Oosterbeek Perimeter. In fact, the Germans by now had called it the cauldron. It was ferocious, and yet it was safer there than out as tiny pockets in areas that were completely dominated by vastly superior and highly mobile German forces. And in these last pictures, we see those German forces making their way through Weaverstraat and further into the Oosterbeek Perimeter itself. Tom and I had been lucky enough to walk the white ribbon line that the troops had laid 81 years ago to follow their way down to the river and then take boats or swim in desperation for the freedom on the Driel side. As we stood looking at the river again today, though, I was just struck at the sheer desperation and unnecessary loss of so much life. I can't say any more, but the words of Stanley Maxted certainly can. So I'm going to leave you now listening to the recordings that he made in the grounds of the Hotel Hartenstein, and leave the rest of the images to tell the rest of the story.
Just a few minutes ago, the fighter cover showed up, and right behind them came those lovely supply planes that you can hear up above us now. Yesterday and this morning, our supplies came, and they were dropped in the wrong place. The enemy got them. But now these planes have come over, and they've dropped them right dead over us. Everybody is cheering and clapping, and they just can't give vent to their feelings about what a wonderful sight this is. All these bundles and parachuted packages and ammunition are coming down here all around us, through the trees, bouncing on the ground. The men are running out to get them, and you have no idea what this means to us to see this ammunition and this food coming down here where the men can get it. They're such fighters that if they can only get the stuff to fight with, it's a wonderful thing. Shame. It's a shame when they can't get the stuff to fight with. You can hear the kind of flak that those planes are flying through. It's absolutely like hail up there. These enemy guns all around us are just simply hammering at those planes. But so far I haven't seen any of them hit. But the bundles are coming down. The parachutes are coming down. That's all that these men ask.